to share a few thoughts with you today on the Immaculate Conception. First of all, a lot of people confuse the Immaculate Conception with the virgin birth. It has nothing to do with it. The Immaculate Conception deals only with Mary. It does not deal with the birth of Jesus. And it is, we say it's the privilege by which Mary was preserved from all stain of sin, original and actual, from the first moment of her existence. Now, to understand what that means, we have to understand a little bit about our theology of grace. There are many people in this world, especially during the Enlightenment, who thought, oh, a man is always naturally good. You know, everything about him is good. Conversely, during the Reformation, many of the reformers thought man is, because of sin, man is totally depraved. He can never do anything right. Even when Christ comes, Christ's merits cover him over, but he's still underneath, he's still depraved and evil. Well, the Catholic position, first of all, is on grace. God intended all of us to share his divine life. When he created Adam and Eve, he created them into his own likeness, his image. He breathed into them his breath of life, so that they were to share everything that belonged to him. Unfortunately, as we know, they lost this by their sin. Now we say that that loss of grace has been passed to every human being. That's what we call original sin. Doesn't mean that we're depraved or anything like that. It means that we're deprived of something that God wants us to have. He wants us to share his life. We're born without it. All of us except one. Now, we say that one person was preserved from all original sin and all actual sin. Does that mean she was not redeemed? No. All of us who have, in this entire human race, all of us are redeemed by the suffering, death, resurrection of Jesus Christ. So how is Mary redeemed if we say she's immaculately conceived? Well, first of all, this was a struggle for the theologians all through the history of the Church. They began to say very early, in the case of Mary, we're not concerned at all original sin or any sin. We're concerned that she is holy. Beginning with St. Irenaeus and the fathers of the first, second century, they made a similarity between Mary and Eve. Eve was the mother of the living, Mary is the mother of grace. Eve brought about sin by her disobedience, Mary brings about grace by her obedience, saying, behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. So they make this comparison and contrast. As we go along and to get up to St. Augustine in the 4th century, St. Augustine says, he talked a lot about original sin. He says, when I'm talking about Mary, I don't mean to say anything about sin. No, she's sinless. But the problem is, if she is sinless, by the way, the one who perhaps most of all talked about Mary as sinless is St. Ephraim, and St. Ephraim the Syrian in the, sorry, I can't remember exactly when. Very early, though, he has these beautiful stories about the sinlessness of Mary. Well, if she's sinless, how did Christ redeem her? And so they struggle with that. Even as great a theologian as St. Thomas Aquinas said, he believed in the sinlessness of Mary, but not in the Immaculate Conception. Well, the Church gradually sifted through this and said, the way that it happens is Mary is redeemed, but she's redeemed in advance. It's as if Christ, by his merits foreseen, protects her from all stain of sin, so that she is redeemed by the passion, death, resurrection of Christ, but she's redeemed by him protecting her in advance. Now, why the Immaculate Conception? Well, because she is the one whom we should have been if it hadn't been for sin. If it were not for original sin, we would have shared God's life. If it hadn't been for original sin, we would have shared his life here and hereafter, be brought into his glory. If it hadn't been for sin, everything that we say about Mary would have happened to us, her assumption, for example, into heaven. So we say Mary, when we celebrate her Immaculate Conception, we're celebrating Christ's redemption in her in advance. And she is the one in whom all the things that were intended by God for us human beings are preserved from sin. And she's the model of what we should be and what we cannot perfectly be, except by our lives. We try to imitate her, to have all the virtues of Christ, and try to be as holy as possible. Even though we have original sin, we are redeemed by God's grace, and we are called to perfection.